Yeah, it's pretty cool. So I'm Alex. I'm ralex1993 on Twitter. Sorry if that makes you feel old. Sorry if that makes you feel young, I guess, whatever. I like working on spaceship simulator controls called Thorium. That's the URL if you want to check it out. Or you can talk to me afterwards. I love talking about my spaceship. And I'm looking for a job. I graduate in April, so anything doing front-end development in Utah or Salt Lake County would be super. So who's ever done code splitting before? Raise of hand. Who doesn't know what code splitting is by raise of hands? Awesome. This talk is for you, and for those of you that do know code splitting but haven't done it with React.lazy, this is also for you. We, in front end, often use bundlers. You don't have to, but typically we use a bundler like Webpack or Browserify or Parcel or something like that to take all of our code, grab all of the imports and the acquires, and bring them all together into one place, and that's what we send to the user. And that's really nice and really handy, except if we do it naively, we'll take everything and we'll dump it into one big file. And then when the user goes to our site, they download all of our JavaScript in one big file, and if they're on a slow connection, that's not necessarily ideal, especially if they don't need all of that code all at the same time. So what React.lazy allows you to do is signal to your bundler, be it Webpack or Parcel or whatever, that you want to split this file into a separate file and only download it when it's absolutely necessary. And then that's what happens. Webpack and React takes care of the magic. React.lazy is the tool that you use to wrap these code split components so that React can understand what they are and handle them appropriately. That's what we're going to dive into. So first we have to start with the dynamic import. Ooh, everyone go ooh. This is a nifty new feature that's coming to JavaScript. It's actually stage 3 of the TC39, so it's being implemented in browsers now. Chrome has it, Firefox Nightly has it. I don't know about Safari, and I don't know about Edge either, but it's pretty cool. It lets you dynamically import files from anywhere. You can import files from URLs, like if you use unpackage, you can just throw the unpackaged URL in there and it'll download it and you can use it if it is in the right format. And you can also use it in your bundled code, and Webpack, and I didn't put Parcel on here, and Browserify recognize that as, hey, this is something that can and should be code split if you use this dynamic import. So that's the very first step, is using this dynamic import, and you just put, it works just like regular require or a regular import statement. You just put what you want to import into the parentheses, and then you can import it. The nice thing about dynamic import, though, is you can put literally any string in there. You can put interpolated strings. You can put the results of a function. If I were to go into the code for my talk, you'll see that I actually have, I use an array generator in order to create all of the dynamic imports. So I only have one dynamic import for this entire site, but it gets all of the pages all at once. Yeah, surprise, this site is actually built with React.lazy, and you'll see how that works in just a bit. Second, once you get your dynamically imported module nice and wrapped together, like we see right here, you wrap it in React.lazy. This comes straight out of the React docs, so if you forget how to do this, you can just go to the React docs and it'll show you how to do this. But you say React.lazy, and that takes a function, and the result of that function needs to be a dynamic import, and then, hey, that's your component. It's as easy as that. Whatever the default import of this component is going to be the component that is this as soon as it's downloaded lazily in the background. So what happens if we, say, have this site that's like mine, and you go to a different page on that site, and one of those components hasn't been downloaded yet because it's supposed to be lazy loaded? What is your UI supposed to do? This is where Suspense comes in. Suspense is the React team's way of handling situations where your components can't render properly because they have data that needs to be downloaded or something that needs to be done in the background for it to be resolved properly. And they've done it in a rather elegant way. We can talk more about the semantics and what happens under the hood with this. But basically, anytime you have a component that is lazily loaded with React.lazy, you wrap it in a suspense component, and this comes right off of the React module, so it's React.suspense. And you give it a prop fallback, and that prop fallback takes another component. This could be just a string, this could be any other React component. Here I have just a generic loading component. In the event that my component hasn't been loaded in the background, it's going to render and display this loading component until this component is loaded, and then it's going to display the component itself. The cool thing about Suspense is you can put it anywhere in your render tree, and this component is just going to go up in the render tree as far as it can until it reaches the first suspense, and that's where the fallback is going to render. So it makes it so you can create some really neat, carefully modeled UIs for these loading states. So let's see what it looks like. If I click on this next page, I have actually just loaded it. Dang it. I made a mistake. I'll show it what it looks like when you're loading first. But here, oh, there it is. Awesome. I didn't make a mistake. So you see that little loading as it loaded the page. Actually, what's happening is I've set my Chrome so that it has slow 3G as the network. And that'll make it so that we can see what happens. So here it is all together. I've got my component that's being lazily loaded with React, and then I have my suspended component. I have suspense here with the fallback, and then my component. And then just to add a little bit of extra, I've wrapped it in an error boundary. Who doesn't know what an error boundary is in React? Raise your hand high in the air. Awesome. This is a feature that was added with React 16. It allows you to handle errors that are thrown in your render. So suppose that you have an error that happens inside of your render function. Typically what that will do is cause the entire application to collapse on itself. But if you use an error boundary, you can define what the UI is supposed to look like in the event of an error. In this case, it's going to check and see, oh, is there a 404 on this lazily loaded component? Great, then let's show something so that the user doesn't just have a white screen of death. Again, check out the React docs for how error boundaries work, but they're a really cool, awesome way for us to make sure that our users get the best experience possible. How is this going to work in the grand scheme of things? Well, fortunately, when you use create React app and output your app, you do npm run build, or React scripts build, I think is the actual command. It gives you an output of all of your different files. Sorry if this is too small to see, but we can see over here on the left is if I were to just import everything regularly without lazy loading. And the file sizes aren't too huge, but that's because this is for this app, and it's not very big. Only 276 kilobytes for the main chunk, and then a couple more smaller bundles. Over here, though, all of those are split out into smaller segments that are only loaded as they're needed, which is really awesome. If it makes this much difference in an app this small, imagine how much difference it'll make in a giant, huge company-level app, or something like Facebook, or I don't know. A couple other things to consider. There's that loading again. A really easy way to do this is with route-based code splitting. If you use the same pattern that I showed you with React.lazy and throw it inside of React Router or Reach Router, it automatically takes care of loading the component when it's supposed to be loaded. Just make sure you throw suspense somewhere on there. Otherwise, your component's going to load the first time that it is rendered. So anytime you have a conditional rendering, you can wrap that component that's being conditionally rendered inside of a React.lazy, and then it'll load whenever. You can do dynamic preload with on-mouse enter. That's what I thought my mistake was when I moved my mouse over this. Apparently I removed that. But if you just run the import statement for a component, for a module, without wrapping it in React.lazy, it will just download it in the background. So if you put that inside of a function, put that function on mouse enter, you can make it so that when you hover over a link, it downloads it in the background and it's ready to go as soon as you click on it, hopefully. Make sure that you include error boundaries to catch 404s or other errors. And then again, the imported module must be in the default export. Otherwise, it's not going to load properly. That's what React.lazy is looking for. Thanks for listening to me. For more information, you can check out the React docs on code splitting. Again, I'm ralex1993 on Twitter and alexanderson1993 on GitHub. And come talk to me afterwards if you want to talk about spaceship or jobs.